Yes, hello everyone, and thank you, Andrew. First of all, I have to thank actually Lorna and Alison for giving us
Hi.
the opportunity to have a small feeling of normal life, yachting life again, actually. So the keynote conference in Malta really became tradition for us, and definitely we would have all loved actually be there. But here we are with our best friend, Mr. Zoon. Good evening to everyone, and I hope you are okay within this context. I have to say that you are really brave, actually, after a whole day of seminar to attend a tax session. So probably not the best timing to do so. So thank you, and we'll make our best efforts to keep you awake with probably the sexiest topic in yachting, which is taxation. Without further ado, let me present you my panelists. So I'm sure you know all of them. They are the experts in their own jurisdictions. So the full bio, for those who don't know them, but I'm sure you do, will be available on Quaynote's website. So ladies first, we've got Alison Vassallo today from Fennec and Fennec. We've got Jennifer Timinins from Ocheida in Greece. We've got Maya Ban as well from AYS Croatia. Then we've got Ezio Vanucci from Moose Rollins Partner in Italy. Miguel Angel Serra from Albers Galliano Law Firm in Spain, and myself. We're gonna touch base today about the latest legal and tax regulations and see how this will impact the yacht operating within EU waters. A lot has happened actually lately. Of course, it has been the COVID, which have lots of implication on private, but also on commercial yachts. We also have new rules in terms of fuel and enjoyment. So these affect as well private yachts, commercial yachts, and we'll see what options are available nowadays as well. And lastly, and I would probably have started with that, is Brexit. Well, Brexit has been a real saga to follow, but now in less than a month now, the UK will be outside of the customs territory of the Union. So a lot of questions mark remain. So we will touch base on this. So we've got a very ambitious program, so bear with us. Just before starting, I will make a small parenthesis on the COVID. We are not going to say what's happening with the COVID and the state of the market. This is not on the point. I think it's not rocket science to say that the beginning of the season, charter season, has been really dramatic, but numbers have started to pick up at the end of the season. And also they have very positive signs in terms of new builds, second-hand sales. So the positive is bright, I think, or at least brighter. So let's kick off with our favorite topic now, taxation. So firstly, let's see actually discuss about the fiscal impacts of COVID. It's getting easier now actually to move around, but there are still some travel restrictions, navigation restrictions, and these affect yachts. So I can think, first of all, about yachts which operate non-EU yachts, which operate under TA in Europe, which have or which will exceed actually the 18-month allowance in Europe. We also have commercial yachts which operate either under the French commercial exemption, Italian commercial exemption, or have been imported in Malta, that left actually the EU, that have been exported and they intend to come back again. Same for private yachts. Within the 3 years period, what commonly we call actually return good relief. And for France and Italy, we also have commercial yachts, which as a consequence of the COVID may have not been able actually to charter or to do enough charters, which actually has an impact on the 70% rule, which is one of the criteria. So my question is here, is there any tolerance from fiscal authorities, customs authorities, in terms of the impacts of this COVID? Is it possible to extend the deadlines? Jean-Philippe, for instance, Do you know if the fiscal and customs authorities are available to consider the 2019 charter season instead of the 2020 charter season?
Hi, Janet. Hi, everyone. Yes, the French customs authorities have been quite flexible, both with regards to temporary admission regime and the French commercial exemption regime. For the temporary admission regime, they can extend the period of stay when you reach that deadline of 18 months for a reasonable period. In any case, that's provided under the Union Customs Code, and it's a possibility given to customs authorities, so it's not really too much of a big deal for them to offer this. For the French commercial exemption and the return goods regime, these are more specific because there's no direct mechanism under the Union Customs Code, but the authorities have been facilitating this by allowing, for example, in the French commercial exemption, owners to use the charter season of 2019 in order to meet the requirements for 2021. Because the FCE, French commercial exemption, relies on you meeting requirements in the past year in order to be allowed to continue to have an exemption from VAT in the current year. So instead of using 2020, you can use 2019. However, it is not automatic. You must make an official request to the French customs, and they will review the charter season of 2019 to see whether or not you can actually benefit from this exemption in 2021. Same for the return goods regime. Normally you should return within 3 years once you left the EU. If you cannot return because you've been blocked outside the EU, stuck in a port because of the restrictions, you can always petition the French customs for a specific allowance. Here again, it is not an automatic allowance. It must be requested from them, but they tend to grant it from the experience that we've had on our side.
So thank you, Jean-Philippe. Good to hear that they are flexible, but definitely obtain a formal authorization for the specific yacht. Ezio or Miguel, any same position in Italy and in Spain as well?
Good afternoon to all. Yes, it is a very, very interesting issue, the extension of the TA and about the Italian commercial exemption. To be honest, today we don't have any formal and official position of the Italian authorities on both problem. Regarding the extension of the temporary admission period, I agree with Jean-Philippe that depositing an appropriate request to the custom authorities in advance and not after the deadline, because sometimes what's happened in some dossiers is that you receive the request of the client, okay, to extend the TA when is already expired. In this situation, to be honest, we cannot control any decision of the authorities. So for sure, the suggestion is to anticipate the deadline. But differently, for what concerns the Italian commercial exemption, to be honest, is not automatically, and I don't think that today we have a solution to avoid to control the Italian the Italian commercial exemption of next year based on 2019, because the law is clear. You should calculate the 70% based on the previous year, and only in specific situation where the yacht is stopped for a refit or is stopped because there is a transfer of title, you can use the previous year. But to be honest, today there is not any clarification of the authorities that the COVID period can be considered as a non-ordinary annual period, and therefore today I should confirm that the Italian commercial exemption next year will be controlled by the calculation of this year.
Okay, thank you. Though they should consider the COVID as a specific situation, I guess. Jen, I understand that Greece has not the same approach on TA like other countries. So could you briefly explain what the difference is and let us know if there's any possibility to extend?
It works differently here. Hello, everyone. Hi. It works differently, and it works well in this case, COVID related, in the sense that what happens is you enter Greece and you get issued a transit log, which lasts for 18 months. Now, after 6 months of use of the boat, you have to file the transit log for another 6 months at least before you can reuse it, which means effectively that your transit log could, if you use it for full 6 months and then file it for 6, it would last for 3 years. If you use your boat for 1 month every year, it will last for 18 years. So my point being that in this case with COVID, your boat comes in and you can't get out. You just file your transit log with the authorities. You can't move, but you're safe in your marina, and that's it. You wait until you can move again. Okay, so you can pause, basically, you can pause the temporary admission as such.
Yeah, good to know.
I mean, COVID-wise, the law that I'm waiting for is because in Greece, to maintain your charter license, you need to have a minimum amount of days. And of course, we have a number of clients who have had a very bad summer and they don't have the days. Okay, a lot of clients are very positive for this upcoming season and they'll make up days, but people looking to sell, clients looking to sell, cannot because they don't have the right days in place. So I'm waiting for some alleviating law to be introduced. And they did take into account, when we get to this later on VAT on charters, they did introduce an across the board low VAT rate with no calculation method, just in order to assist, to give the industry a boost because of COVID.
Good to hear.
So that's where we are.
The positive news, at least for once, for Greece.
Yeah.
And I can say that, I'm Greek, so I can say that with an ironic smile. Let's move on to short-term and long-term leases. And first of all, we'll start with short-term. So short-term being less charters of less than 90 days. And we will move on next with long-term leases. So there has been a whole lot of new regulations, actually. So let's start with Alison. Alison, actually, Malta has been the first one to react following the infringement procedure commenced against Malta, Cyprus, Italy. And I think that today, actually, you have good news to announce to us about this infringement procedure. But also, if you can briefly outline then what is the new method of calculation for the VAT applicable on charters starting from Malta, and this, if that's a way actually to reduce the taxable basis.
Okay. So hello everyone. I would have much rather welcomed you in Malta physically, of course, but hey, it's better than nothing, much better than nothing. So yes, the positive news, as we've seen in some of our social media, of course, is that the Commission has withdrawn the infringement action against Malta, which we have, of course, welcomed because we have, as we've always kept the industry updated, felt very strongly that the previous interpretation that Malta applied was one based on the understanding of the use and enjoyment provision, which was applied by all member states. You're absolutely right. Malta was the first one to take the bull by the horns, defend its action at Commission level, its previous position at Commission level, but also started a process of re-evaluating this interpretation. So the first news is that the old leasing structure was stopped more than a year ago now, as everyone knows. So factually, that was stopped in its operations until discussions continued with the Commission. But in the meantime, a new position was launched by Malta earlier this year, and we are now seeing it reflected very recently also in France and in Italy. So what we are speaking about now is definitely a movement away from standard application of presumed use and enjoyment of yachts, which we have all been accustomed to over these past 10 years. And we are all moving towards, by all I mean the main jurisdictions that offer this application of these rules. We are collectively moving, or have moved now already, towards actual measurement of time. So time that the yacht spends in the EU and time that the yacht spends outside of the EU. And it's a very logical interpretation because VAT is a consumption tax. So the starting point is rather that VAT is applied at 18% in Malta's case at the full rate on charters that start from Malta. But if the owner can prove that the yacht spent time outside of European waters, then there is the possibility that VAT on that time is not paid because the consumption was not in the EU. And as you well know, this is also something that has now been reflected in the various announcements being made in Italy and in France. So I think that's a positive thing for all of us, for the industry, for practitioners and for owners, because there is a level of certainty now. I know that different members, I will speak for Malta, but I know that collectively there are, of course, fine-tunings to be made. There are still, you know, discussions being made with the authorities now that will actually start applying these rules to make sure that we are applying them homogeneously and correctly. But definitely that is now the position that we can speak about. And these rules apply, of course, to leases, to operational leases that are commenced in Malta. So the requirements are still always there. I don't know if you asked me something else as well, Janet.
The moment is fine. So thank you, Alison.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure that charterers will really like that change, but yeah, let's see. At least we're moving.
I'm talking about long-term leases, long-term operational leases. So I want to make that distinction at this point in time.
We want that a bit later.
Yes, I know, but at the moment, as regards short-term charters, we are still awaiting some clarification. So I can really give a position on the long-term leases.
Okay, thank you for this clarification. Ezio, Jean-Philippe, since the 1st of November now, France and Italy have also adopted a position whereby they stopped actually considering the lump sum, the fixed lump sum reduction regimes, and moved towards a base where full VAT is applicable. And as Alison said, it's possible to reduce the taxable basis considering the time spent outside of EU waters. So can you explain a bit more what are the criteria that could be considered or taken into consideration in order to determine and to be able to prove actually the time spent outside of EU waters? Jean-Philippe, maybe?
Yeah, so in France, we are now best friends with Italy, or best competitors with Italy, in the sense that everything that Italy does, France will do, and everything that France will do, Italy will seem to do now.
So no more attack
reason,
because it was a play between Italy and France, actually.
About Malta, Jean-Philippe, you're friends with us as well, no? I mean,
yes, but it seems
you've taken a feather out of our cap as well.
No, but it seems we're co-joined twins now with Italy. We will do everything together at the same time.
Oh, I see.
No, the real reason, joking aside, is that the French customs authorities have always viewed Italy as distorting a little bit the competition and never wanted to do anything before Italy did it. That is why we always waited until Italy issued its own legislation so we could change it, in order to avoid being the first to change and Italy not following up, because that's what happened in the past. But no, joking aside, we modified our regime in March initially, but it was postponed due to the COVID period to the 1st of November. And now, previously, France was a good student in the sense that it had always allowed charterers to reduce what we call the taxable basis, which is effectively the VAT paid on the charters, in accordance with time spent outside the EU. However, it was too good of a student in that it gave an allowance of an automatic 50% reduction to any charterer that could not prove the actual time spent. So in the yachting world, whenever you give an allowance to anyone, they will jump on it and apply it always. So the real reason was that everyone was applying this 50% lump sum reduction. So we have now struck this off from the legislation and from the administrative doctrine and reduced it back to a reduction in proportion with time spent outside EU waters. The method of calculation is still a little bit unclear. Will we calculate it on the basis of a second, a minute, an hour, a day, a week, the entire duration of the charter? It's still a bit unclear, but we get the reasoning behind it, which is that it will be a proportion between time outside and total time of the charter. How you prove it? You will need to use the AIS, or if you don't have an AIS, you can use any means, any technical means, or for vessels of less than 15 meters in length, you can use the logbook, but only for these specific vessels. The consequences are that now it will of course be a little bit more expensive to do short-term charters, and automatically long-term charters have been affected as well because they're also calculated on the same reasoning. So the long-term charters, meaning basically the French leasing schemes, have also been affected.
If you don't mind, we'll touch up, we'll speak about long-term lease just after. So if I could just up to here for short-term charters.
Okay, then I'll leave the floor to Ezio.
Ezio, now that you're best friends with France, do you share actually the same?
Thanks, Jean-Philippe.
No, Jean-Philippe, you still can shoot Italy with the duty-free. We'll see that later. So Ezio?
Thanks, Jean-Philippe, for your comment. I think that different from France, what for sure is interesting to point out that Italian authorities release a document, a circular that is an official document signed directly by the director of the tax office in Rome, of more than 10 pages. So the tax office, differently from France, I think I can say, go through the details of this new procedure, because for sure the interpretation of the effective use of the yacht outside the Union waters is something that should have a different answer. No, so was very important to focus on what the tax authorities, the national tax authorities, want to use as a correct and exact punctual actual interpretation of the effective use, and so that the result of the Italian authorities has been that we are now talking about the short-term charter, the short-term contract, because after, when we will discuss the long terms in these documents, there are some differences. So it's important to point out which is the difference in the interpretation of the Italian authorities between the short terms and the long terms. But so now, based on the short terms contract, the Italian authorities suggest two different approach in order to prove the use of the yacht outside the EU. In case of a yacht that has a satellite system on board, the AIS, in this scenario is only necessary, okay, to take the appropriate proof of when the yacht reach the international waters with the AIS system, and then again proof when the yacht reach again the national waters or the EU waters after this cruising. The cruising outside the Union waters based on a time, okay, will be then the portion of the charter fees that is not subject to Italian DT. So it's a very simple calculation after an appropriate calculation of the time spent inside or outside. Differently, if the yacht is a small yacht, or in any case is not obliged to have a satellite equipment aboard, they can use as alternative proof of the cruising in international waters a digital photo of the position of the yacht in international water, and the Italian authorities ask two digital photos for each weeks of cruising.
Thank you very much for this clarification. So mainly you still have actually the same interpretation of the means which could use. Very quickly, Miguel, I'm moving on back to TA because this has been a question for Duncan. Very briefly, please. What's the Spanish position on yachts operating under TA that have exceeded or will exceed the 18-month period in Spain?
Well, hi everybody. The position is very similar to that of Italy. There is no official position, so no extension have been granted officially. But as commented by Jean-Philippe, the Union Customs Code in, I think it was Article 251, foresees the possibility to extend in some occasions, but as commented also by Ezio, prior application to the customs, and we do not have to wait until the period of 18 months has elapsed, because this is a warranty that we will be denied the extension of the period. The same happens with the return good relief.
Thank you very much. I hope, Duncan, that we answer your question. Going back to short-term charters and VAT applicable, Jen, you mentioned that there were news on VAT which are on the pipeline, which have not been officialized yet, but which are on the pipeline. Can you briefly evoke those, please?
They're official, but they're still in the pipeline, in the sense we don't know how to implement them 100%. So we had new laws introduced reducing, which dealt with how VAT rates can be reduced during charter. And again, using the AIS Class A, everyone has to have it. It's the only way to record. But this summer, this AIS recording has to be lined up with an electronic app of the government, which hasn't yet been introduced. So this summer, prior to them implementing the tax, the COVID tax alleviating measure, we had captains who were just using marine traffic and their logbooks and AIS, if they had them on board, to just back themselves in case they were called upon. The rule is you have to spend 60% of charter time and distance from continental zone if you start on the mainland, 6 nautical miles, or beyond territorial waters, again 6 nautical miles from the island. 6 nautical miles is not much, but on the other hand, if you look at the geography of Greece, it's impossible with all the little islands. It's impossible to move far generally. So in a way, the geography has helped it make it pretty easy to comply with the rule in order to get this 50% discount, and it takes you down from 24 to 12. But like I say, because we had this COVID measure, we haven't yet had to go through proving to the authorities that you did actually do the 60% of time and distance. And then for boats starting and ending outside of Greece, from a non-EU port, Saranda, for example, which is very common for boats with no charter licenses, they start from Albania or Turkey. VAT at full rate of 24% should apply for the time spent in Greece. But again, I'm not sure how that will be implemented because we haven't yet got guidelines on how the VAT collection will take place. I assume it will be something similar to what we know from our other European countries, but we're not there yet. So for now, I mean, our advice to central agents is charge 24, put the money on escrow, and let's see how it goes, how it pans out over the next 6 months.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Miguel, I know that Spain never actually adopted the lump sum reduction regime, but do you think that, and always applied actually the full VAT rates actually to charters starting from Spain, any possibility that this changes in 2021 in Spain?
Thank you, Janet. It's possible because we have been discussing with the customs department in Madrid, and they were awaiting how the procedures with France and Italy especially were finally resolved to decide if finally they would apply Article 59A of the directive or not. As you say, well, they have never accepted to apply, but you know that the directive offered just an option to apply or not this Article 59A, so that services not rendered within the VAT territory are really taxed or not. What is really new in relation to the use and enjoyment rule in Spain is that in the preliminary draft of the budget for 2021, which is about to be approved probably most likely by the end of January, there is a provision stating that each and every charter departing from Ceuta, Melilla, which are the Spanish autonomous city in the north of Africa. Ceuta is 15 nautical miles from Gibraltar, and Melilla is 80 miles from the Spanish mainland. So they can apply their own tax because they are out of the VAT territory to the charter fees. And this is nowadays 4% on the charter fees. So when they come into the Spanish mainland or the Balearic Island, then they will not apply the use and enjoyment rule, so that VAT would not be applicable at 21%. Therefore, only 4% on charter fees will be applicable, and as the equivalent tax in Ceuta and Melilla to the VAT in Europe is a municipal tax that can be moved by the own governments of the cities, we have been dealing with the Port Authority there, and this will be reduced to 0.1%. So what I'm saying is that we will be able in 2021 to charter in the Balearics from Ceuta and Melilla paying 0.1%. It could be something contradictory with the EU Commission doctrine in the last time, but we have to bear in mind that we are talking about territories that are outside the VAT area, outside of the customs territory, and outside, not outside of the European Union, but outside also of the excise duty, VAT, customs territory, and everything.
And this with a classic charter contract, even though without a transport contract?
No, not necessarily. With the charter contract is perfectly fine. You do not need a charter transport contract.
Going back to France quickly, Jean-Philippe, these new rules on the VAT on short-term charters will have an impact as well on yachts operating under French commercial exemption. So do you think that there will be room for other means of importation of these yachts? For instance, I have in mind the reverse charge mechanism, and in Malta as well, a second option will probably be for the yachts which are not able anymore to charter enough or to do the 17%, mainly the yachts which are small, commercial yachts which are too small, or commercial yachts which do not navigate enough outside of EU waters. So perhaps also after Jean-Philippe, Alison, you could also explain and tell us what is the simplified import process, which has also not introduced, but it has been simplified, which can be a second alternative options to the yachts, commercial yachts, which are getting imported under the French commercial exemption.
Yes, Janet. The issue you have with the French commercial exemption is that you need to do a specific number of trips outside the French waters. So you can either go to a foreign port, so Italy, Spain, or any other EU port, or outside of the European Union, or, and the French commercial exemption specifically provided this, you can simply leave the French territorial waters and then return into the French territorial waters, and it would still count as one of the criteria to meet that 70%, the famous 70% rule of the French commercial exemption. Probably this possibility to simply spend 1 second outside French territorial waters, call to the non-EU waters, and then come back will probably be also modified because it's not in line with the reasoning that the EU Commission is imposing on all the other EU member states. So I think that in the future, the FCE will only allow you to calculate those trips when they are done between French ports and foreign ports, and no longer between two French ports with simply calling outside EU waters for a specific period of time. It will make it a lot more difficult to meet the requirements of those number of trips per year for small vessels, or for those vessels that are always based in the same areas and don't want to go to Italy or to Spain. So it will make it a little bit harder for operators to meet these requirements. As an alternative, as you correctly pointed out, you still have the reverse charge mechanism, which is an alternative to the French commercial exemption, in the sense that the reverse charge mechanism does not require you to make a certain number of trips each year under specific conditions. However, the conditions to be allowed to import under the reverse charge mechanism are a bit more difficult to meet than under the FCE, because you will need to meet a specific number of past importations, and you will still need to have a request that is done sufficiently in advance to be granted, and it is only valid starting the month after the month in which it was granted. So basically you need to start your request 1, 2, 3 months before the date you want to import. Whereas for the FCE, you can send a request to the customs authorities a couple of days before. If you're lucky, you can get your authorization and put everything in place. It's not possible with the reverse charge mechanism. And finally, the reverse charge mechanism does not allow you to exempt VAT on supplies of goods or services. You still have to operate under the standard VAT rules. You can still reverse charge these VAT, but if the supplies are made from French suppliers, you have to account for the VAT and then reclaim it. So it's a little bit more complicated to operate than under the FCE. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but probably the reverse charge mechanism will see a lot more use given the restrictions now on the FCE for these short-term charters and how they are going to be accounted.
Thanks, Jean-Philippe. But surely I think that there will be more controls on the genuine commercial operation of these yachts, and maybe it will be a bit more difficult to reclaim part of the VAT, because I'm not sure that you will be able actually to reclaim VAT on everything, which was the case actually on the French commercial exemption, because no VAT was paid and there were less controls actually on the real genuine commercial operation. Alison, what about the alternative option, which is Malta, which I'm sure that you will see more and more yachts actually also probably coming to Malta now that there has been a simplified process.
Well, Malta has for many years, and you're all very familiar with it, offered a very efficient importation procedure. So over the years, we have still seen a growing interest in importations via Malta. I think mostly because it works pretty smoothly. You know, there are a set number of rules to be followed, and once all the documents are in place, it's a very fast procedure. What is new and what is it's a happy sort of occurrence in light of, unfortunately, the difficulties that will be caused now to the French commercial exemption is that earlier this year we obtained confirmation from the authorities of fine-tuning of the procedures, and the two main changes are that, as you might recall, the importation procedure envisages that the yacht would be imported in Malta on the basis of a bank guarantee, which would defer the importation tax on the basis of a 4-month bank guarantee period, which was calculated at 20% of the VAT that would be due. And the change is that if the importing company, if the importing entity is Maltese, is a Maltese company, then the requirement of a bank guarantee has been completely removed by the authorities. So that is obviously a big plus, because it renders the procedure quicker and simpler. With regard to owning entities which are not Maltese, then the bank guarantee will still be required. It's still required for 4 months, but the value has been diminished. So rather than 20% of the VAT, it's now 0.75% of the VAT that would be otherwise due. And this was brought in line also with what we see in the aviation industry in Malta. So I am finding that these two new introductions have been welcomed by the clients. As an industry, we had made these proposals to the authorities. Of course, we learned through the years what might make sense for clients, of course, within the parameters of what the law provides and what the Commissioner of Revenue's discretion is under the Inland Revenue Act and the VAT Act, and it's worked. So we were already doing this, it works pretty well. And hopefully we will see more and more yachts, you know, taking advantage of this procedure.
Thanks. I'm sure of that. We don't have really time because you really run out of time and still have a lot to say. But also perhaps these new regulations applicable on VAT on charters. Probably we also see, and I'm speaking for France now, the increase of charterers using the transport contract. Because actually the VAT rate is either 0%, either 10% in the worst case scenario. But no more time for that. So Maya, so I'm sorry, I've not forgotten you, but I know that have not been real news actually on the VAT on charters, even though we will touch on the news which concerns the UK yachts due to the Brexit. Though I understand you have news as far as duty-free fuel is concerned.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Janet. Luckily, I could say that yes, Croatia is still the same as 2017. Nothing has changed regarding that VAT rate and charter license. It will change probably with Brexit, but on the other note, just coming back to your question, yes, this was a pretty big news this season. Where we started to be able to provide duty-free fuel in Croatia for commercial yachts with the length overall of 45 meters before they leave Croatia. It has to be a commercial vessel and it has to leave Croatia after the fueling is done, but that is pretty much the biggest news, I would say, this year on our charter market.
Okay, thanks, Maya. And probably Jean-Philippe will say, wait until you got a new infringement procedure against Croatia.
I hope not.
Jen, what about duty-free fuel in Italy and in Greece?
Sorry, Janet, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I said any news regarding duty-free fuel in Italy and in Greece?
Oh, okay. So for what concerns Italy, maybe that you are aware that there is an infringement open in front of the EU Commission against Italy. This was already for France, but France has already closed this dossier. I don't remember if 1 or 2 years ago. And then the request of the Commission is exactly the same that was in France. And to be honest, in my opinion, is also correct, the interpretation of the Union, of the EU Commission regarding this exemption or not about the accise. But today, I should point out that I don't know why the Italian authorities resist with his interpretation, and then now it's still possible to have a duty-free fuel in Italy. Also, if at the end of October, was the 23 October, the main court of Italy, that is Corte di Cassazione, release an appeal against a fuel company, confirming that the interpretation of the EU Commission is correct, and then this is not possible to bunkering in duty-free in case that the final destination and use of this fuel is for pleasure and recreational, because the main point of the EU Commission infringement and also of the Corte di Cassazione is that if the final use of this fuel is for enjoyment of private use, at the end of the story, this is not an effective commercial activities behind, and therefore the accise cannot be, should be paid. So I suppose now there is a different approach, an approach of the Court of the Cassation that say that you cannot apply excise, exemption of the excise, and on the other hand, the custom authorities that still maintain their circular that grant the excise exemption. So my suggestion to the owner and to any other people involved in yachting is that today we should take care of any fuel in duty free, because I think that before the end of this year the custom authorities should change his approach, and I don't know if this can have also an impact retroactive. So today my suggestion is to avoid fuel in duty free and wait what will be the result of the final days of this year, because in my opinion a new position of the Italian Custom Authority will arrive very soon.
Okay, thanks, Sergio. Yeah, I think duty free is soon over everywhere in all jurisdictions. Moving now quickly to long-term leases before we touch on Brexit. Well, in the same way that lump sum reductions have stopped for short-term charters, the same for the long-term leases, which includes which actually implies the end of the so-called French and Italian leasing schemes as well. So first question quickly for Jean-Philippe. Do you think that banks will come up with new solutions in terms of French leasing schemes, or it's definitely over?
They have to. They have to, because the main argument that they had was that if you financed the operation through a bank, you obtained a 50% reduction on the VAT. So your gain was significant, and the downside was only paying for the financing. Now, if you purchase through a bank, you pay for the financing and you don't have the VAT reduction. So they have to come up with an alternative solution to make it attractive again. There is a lot of outcry from all the boat manufacturers in France, because the hardest hits will be between 10 and 25 meters, where the French manufacturers have a good market. And always try to finance them through French leasing schemes. Now those leasing schemes are no longer attractive unless you go for the high-end vessels who can actually prove that they spend some time outside EU waters. Whereas for the smaller units, they will not be able to prove this anymore.
Yeah, thanks, Jean-Philippe. No, I agree that they need, and I think they were a bit shocked by the fact that it was announced, I think, on the 6th of November with the reactive effect on the 1st of November. So definitely this has been a hard news.
Yeah, but the reason was that they were trying to catch up to Italy again. So they had to do it retroactively to go back to the same state as Italy was 6 days ago.
Best friends now, I can see.
Yeah.
Alison, I mean, the all good Maltese leasing scheme, as we all loved it, arrived to an end since a few months now already. But is there another alternative in order to mitigate VAT on the acquisition of private yachts, aside from the fact of coming to Malta and paying 80%, which is one of the lowest in Europe already?
Yes, I mean, I think collectively we are moving away towards this idea of reduction per se, you know, as the ultimate aim. I think we are moving, as I said, towards measuring time. In answer to your question, yes, there is a solution, and the solution, if we call it that, was always available, and that is for owners to enter into operating leases, which are setups which we find in other luxury assets, you know, and we've always found in other luxury assets. And the VAT rate in Malta has always been one of the lowest compared to other jurisdictions, which as well leads us to see a lot of smaller yachts. I mean, smaller as well is a relative word now in our world, but we see clients choosing to import and pay VAT outright at 18%. But with that aside, definitely the guidelines which I mentioned earlier are available. They have been promulgated by the authorities, and they offer the possibility, if there is actual proof through GPS, through logbooks, that a yacht under a lease has spent an amount of time outside of European waters, then definitely it is a way of obtaining either, now whether it's an adjustment or whether it is the non-payment of VAT for the time that the yacht is not present in Europe. So I think we are all on the same page in the sense of interpretations, right? I think these 2 years have seen us all witnessing a shift in the landscape. I don't agree in a way with saying that now we are harmonized, whereas before we weren't, because even before we weren't, we were harmonized to an extent, because we applied the use and enjoyment on an assumed percentage of time depending on length. So there was a harmonization before. Now we are harmonized because we are agreeing to measure time with the blessing of the Commission. And I think that is a big achievement in clarity, because we've seen that over the past year or so, we have all been sort of watching the space and seeing what the outcome is going to be with the Commission. And as I said earlier, now with the closing of the proceedings, with the infringement proceeding against Malta, and with this movement of member states to, announce this interpretation, I think we can look forward to a new landscape. I mean, God willing, now this whole COVID saga will be behind us next season. I'm really hoping, because today we've seen the announcement of the first approvals of the vaccine. So I am eternally optimistic that we are at the end of this. And and I think that we are going to see an interesting new season with us applying the rules. And I think that Malta, as it has always had in the past, is offering clarity. It has offered clarity for a number of months now. And I think we can look forward to seeing, increased application of these rules.
Thanks, Alison. So maybe the US owners, who are always afraid and looking at the EU as, we don't know what's going on, so we stay away. Maybe now that there will start to be more clarity, will attract yachts who were perhaps not coming because it was a bit, they didn't know exactly what was going to apply. Jean-Philippe, very briefly, what about the Monaco long-term bareboat rental plan, which is also an alternative for private yachts?
Yes, you have this possibility that is set up through Monaco to enter into an operational lease, same a bit like what Malta used to do, except in this case, the objective is not to obtain a VAT paid vessel at the end, like the Malta leasing scheme offered before, but you simply defer the full payment of VAT. Instead, you pay VAT on the depreciation value of the asset each year. So you pay an extremely low amount of VAT to postpone the date when that VAT becomes due. However, it is valid for 5 years. At the end of those 5 years, the VAT is in effect lost because it doesn't count towards a payment of VAT for a VAT paid status, but the amount of VAT you paid is rather insignificant compared to the full 20% you should have paid. However, the main mechanism here also relied on the lump sum reduction that was offered for French leasing schemes. So it will be a little bit less attractive, but because you're talking about a greatly reduced amount of VAT in the first place, even if you double that greatly reduced amount of VAT, you still come up with a reduced amount of VAT, which should remain attractive for some owners, but the costs are only starting to be offset against the advantages, or the reverse, sorry, advantages offset against the cost once you reach a certain size of a vessel. So it won't compensate and offer compensation for the owners of small units that will be hard hit by the long-term charter mechanism being changed. it will only be beneficial for the quite large units that can be placed under that scheme and benefit from it.
Thanks, Jean-Philippe. No, I think I agree with you. I think it start to make sense for yachts 10 million plus. Very briefly, I think another thing which is possible due to the fact that these yachts are imported by a third-party company is that it has been confirmed also that this yacht could be registered also under the Yacht program, meaning that they can be placed in free circulation plus do dual operation with EU but also non-EU charters. So I think this may be still have an interest for very large units for owners who intend to also to have this dual use. Let's move on Brexit now, which is the hot topic of the moment. So actually, yes, as I said before, in less than 30 days now, the UK will be outside of the UK customs territory. So there are lots of impacts, of course, for UK registered yachts, owned yachts, but also for UK resident owners and for UK resident crew who work and want to continue to work in Europe. So first of all, Alison, do you think that Brexit could be an opportunity for the UK, as starting from 1st January 2021, UK yachts will be considered as non-EU yachts anymore?
I mean, I would never dare to be an expert on Brexit or what will happen in England, because even from talking to my, close colleagues, it always seems as though there's always a bit of a question mark on what actually will happen in practice. But I always saw the main change in yachting, the first thing that comes to mind is that British residents can apply for temporary admission. So to me, I mean, and of course, we get a lot of British clients coming to us for solutions. It's definitely something which we are discussing, both for existing clients and also new ones. As to potentially how they would deal with VAT on the private yachts when they are using the yacht in Europe post-Brexit. So to me, that is a very clear advantage to owners that can apply for temporary admission to be able to import their yachts for 18 months in Europe at a time. I think beyond that, I'm very hesitant to say anything. So I will leave it to my learned colleagues to comment.
Miguel, briefly before we start discussing about how to protect the VAT status of the yachts, what about UK yachts? Do you think that may be an opportunity for them as well? Miguel?
For UK yachts, I think
yards.
UK yachts. Okay. For UK yachts, I think that well, they have the opportunity of EU yachts going for more refit in the UK, using the local inward process relief that they will for sure put in place in the same terms of the EU. The only issue I'm worried about that is that EU yachts sailing out of the customs territory after 1st of January 2021 will have to be re-imported in the customs territory. So this is usually done through the return goods relief foreseen in Article 203 of the Customs Code. So one of the conditions of the returns goods relief is that yachts must return in the same status that when they sail out of the customs territory. And if you are doing a basic refit, maybe this could apply with no problem. But if you are doing a structural refit, a big refit on the yacht, what is for sure is that this increase in value of the yacht will make not applicable the return goods relief. And the answer is immediate. What will be taxed? The increase of value or the full value of the yacht, which is coming back to the EU? This is the main issue that we have to face now in the refits in the UK, I think.
The answers of it, what would that be? Pay the difference on the value of the VAT on the works or on the full value of the
From a logical and economic standpoint, it is clear that what should be is to be taxed on the value added to the yacht. But the truth is that if we lose logical, which is lost in many occasions on custom issues, you are not fulfilling with one of the conditions of the custom regime. So you are not allowed to the VAT exemption on the reimportation. So it could be that some country could apply for the VAT on the full value of the yacht after refit, which is quite dangerous. So it would be nice to clarify in each and every country, and it would be also nice to have a clear position in the whole Union Customs territory, and not as usual, one solution in one country, another solution in another, and that's quite a bit a mess.
Yeah. A lot to continue to keep us busy, I see. Let's move on the impact on the VAT status of yachts. Well, I can think about, okay, yachts which are UK register. I can think about VAT paid yachts. I can think about commercial yachts which have been imported and operate under the French or Italian commercial exemptions, yachts which have been imported in Malta, private VAT paid yachts and commercial yachts which have been imported or have a VAT accounted for status that have been exported and they tend to come back under the return good relief. So my question is, and probably the question that everybody has, is does the location of such UK registered yachts at 11 p.m. UTC on the 31st of December 2020 makes a difference? Will the location of the yachts at that time determine their fiscal and tax status? Who wants to reply to that? Okay.
Okay. I think that, in my opinion, I think that today there is not any exact and clear interpretation of any of the EU country about the situation of the yacht. There are many books and webinar regarding what's happened to import and export of goods, but not on a yacht. So we should take, you should try, okay, to make the best interpretation. In my opinion, at the moment, yes, I think that is suggestible to the client, to the owner, that if a UK yacht VAT paid, I am talking now regarding a private yacht, for example, okay, UK flag and with VAT paid, in my opinion, is necessary that the yacht can confirm its position at the end of this year with an appropriate proof inside the Union territory, because with this proof is for sure clear that also if the yacht will decide to maintain and preserve the UK flag, the yacht will also preserve the VAT status, because the yacht in any case is a EU goods and was based at the moment of the transaction of the rule in the Union territory. Differently, if the yacht, the same private yacht at the end of this year is for any reason in Caribbean, in my opinion, this yacht lose the VAT status. The only option to preserve this EU VAT status is that the custom authorities can apply the return goods relief on an appropriate procedure and confirm the VAT status, because the yacht return in the Union within the three years. This is what is today my opinion regarding a private yacht, because I think that the main issue is for private yacht, not for commercial.
Well, for commercial yacht, probably these yachts you will have to be re-imported. At least new yachts will have to be imported. But Miguel, any local position, any Spanish local position on the Brexit impact for yachts?
Yes. Well, I think it's very similar, and the verbal opinion from the Spanish customs authorities is quite similar to what Ezio is saying. I think that what would be fair is that a new status yacht, if it's British flagged or not, should maintain its EU status and its VAT paid status after Brexit. This a different thing would be completely unfair, because the rules at the moment were those rules, and it is a new yacht. But I would add something in addition, that I think that EU status yachts, British flag, should be able to opt if they want to keep the EU status or they want to give up. Because maybe, depending on where they are sailing, which is the purpose of the yacht, private, commercial, if they want to do, or they do often refit in the EU, etc., they may prefer to continue being a new status yacht or not. So I think it would be up to the yacht owning company, or yes, to the yacht owning company to opt if the yacht continues to be a new status yacht or not. But in any case, if they want, I think that the European Union should allow to preserve this status at any time, for sure.
Yeah, so definitely a good advice would be that if there's no any contingency plan yet, for these owners really to run to the tax advisors and probably have with two questions in mind, is that where the yacht is location now, where they intend to locate the yacht in the future, and what is the use of the yacht, if it's private, commercial, or dual, and this will help to determine if any change is required in terms of ownership or in terms of registration. Maya, if UK yachts now became non-EU yachts, this will change, of course, the things if these yachts want to charter in Croatia.
Correct. With the Brexit, if it stays like it is now, from the next year, the UK flag vessels will have to have a charter license to charter in Croatia, commercial vessels, of course. That said, it doesn't mean that it will be too difficult or too complicated compared to the current situation, because pretty much these clients, considering in Croatia we have something that's called e-crew system, which is a system where we need to input every yacht that wants to do the legal chartering in Croatia. In order to be inputted into that system, we need to have technical documents from the clients, from the yacht. So the same documents that are required now basically will be required for the charter license as well. So it's not going to be an extra burden regarding the bureaucratical stuff on the clients. There will be extra fee though, because it's to 200 euros at the moment. The license is valid for 1 year, so that's going to have to be obtained each year. But the only maybe obstacle could be for the yachts under 24 meters in length that are currently chartering under UK flag, because depending on a yacht and type of the yacht, government can put the ban on issuing charter license to those type of yachts because of the market situation. So in order to protect the local market with the Croatian flag vessels, they might not issue. But I don't see any issues for the yachts over 24 meters and plus. So yeah, it will be definitely charter license required, but it will not cause too much stress on the whole process. It's pretty simple. Now the question is how it's going to affect the VAT status. Is there going to be now, as you were talking about, and Miguel said, stay the as it is, and it will be accepted as an EU good still, or they're going to have to be re-imported? I hope not, for the sake of everybody.
Probably depending where they are based and if they left or not. So
Yeah.
a good thing would be probably for these yachts to keep records on where they are, supporting documentation to really prove if they were inside or outside the EU at the time of the Brexit becomes effective. Jen, the thing is that usually for non-EU it's not possible or more difficult. So will it be possible now for UK registered yachts which become non-EU yachts to obtain the charter license in Greece?
If they're over 35 meters and they don't have wooden hulls, that's fine. They can obtain a charter license, but they'll be subject to income tax on the actual charter fees. So whereas now EU flagged vessels with Greek charter licenses are exempt from income tax. So what we have now is any boats in Greece which are UK owned or flagged currently with charter licenses below 35 meters, they're recalling all of the licenses. So by the end of the year, they'll have recalled them all, and going forward, it will only apply for boats over 35. Other than that, I would say that in our case, it's harder on the commercial side. Yeah, of course, we want to see what's going to happen on a pan-European, on the VAT paid status, but I don't think we'll have a problem. If boats are VAT paid, they'll be deemed to be VAT paid. Also, if they want to come, or boats that aren't here and want to come under TA, will be most welcome to. But on the commercial side, yeah, it's only above 35 meters.
Okay, because we just have 4 minutes left, I think Brexit would also have impact on the time actually the UK resident owners are allowed to join actually their yachts in Europe, but also resident crew. So I understand that they will have to comply with the 90 over the 180 days period of time when they're traveling within Schengen areas. Though I understand that the AYA is working on having extended this 90-day automatically to 180 days, so that there's a similarity with the possibility for Schengen visitors to join actually the UK. Then lastly, Alison, the Brexit would also have an impact on British crew, and they're not that a lot. First of all, on certification, because one question remains, what about the recognition of the UK certificates, the recognition and the endorsements of the UK COCs, but also, and I think that the answer is there's a real problem there, but more, Alison, there are also a lot of UK resident crew members who are registered for Social Security in Malta. So do you know what will be the situation for these crew members? Will they be able to retain their A1 certificate and crew social benefits or not after the Brexit?
I think, hello, can you hear me? Okay. I think I always like to go back to basics because of course there are still a number of clarifications that are being in the process of being obtained. But in my view, when we speak of social security, we need to see which law would apply to the crew member, in the sense that whether the crew member falls under EU regulations on social security, or whether the crew member does not fall under regulation 44 relating to 148 relating to social security. And if the crew member is not a national or resident in the EU at all, then one would look at our Merchant Shipping Act, which imposes a number of obligations on the ship owner of yachts registered under the Malta flag to have the classical sort of coverage, which we usually find under P&I club coverage in any case. So there is a level of protection afforded by the law. But if the crew then fall within the parameters of the EU regulation relating to social security, then of course there are registration requirements, registration under the social security regime. So the question to ask is that particular crew member an EU resident or a non-EU resident, and which law will apply? And I think one would need to then take it from there. What happens to those that are currently registered? Then, I mean, we'd need to see if they're still eligible or not, and if not, they would need to convert to the general protection under statutory law.
My understanding, because briefly, I mean, we had the case actually with one crew member, and my understanding is that for UK resident crew members who are already employed now as we speak and before the Brexit under Maltese registered yacht could continue actually to benefit from the social benefits in Malta and social security registration until they work on this peculiar yacht. Once the contract is terminated, it's over, and they will have to take a private social cover and not be able anymore actually to continue to benefit from that.
Well, it makes sense.
Lorna and Alison, so it means it's over. So thank you very much to all of you. I think it has been a lovely, lively session, comprehensive and I hope insightful. So thank you, and for those who have questions, you know where to find us.
Thank you very much, Janet.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you.
And I just want to say a couple of things about that panel. First of all, really good to see a panel with more women than men on it for a change. Secondly, I think a special shout out to Jean-Philippe because his acoustics are so brilliant. I think he's probably hired a concert hall for the occasion. So well done, Jean-Philippe. And then finally, well done, because you're I think the only session in the whole of today that's overrun. So it's such a riveting subject that we haven't been able to stop you going on and on. But I've told them that my rates for overtime are quite expensive, so we'd better bring it to a halt now. So just to finish up, it's been a great day. I've certainly enjoyed it, and I hope everyone else has too. My thanks in particular to our sponsors, Liberty Global and Melita Marine. Thanks to Quaynote for organising. Thanks to all the panelists. And finally, thank you to all the delegates for attending. I think that there'll be some parting words from Lorna and Alison, but thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd just like to echo Andrew in thanking speakers, sponsors, and our audience out there. And obviously, I'd like to thank Andrew himself for ably chairing the conference. Unfortunately, it wasn't in Malta this time, but almost as good as. We can use our imaginations. And last but no means least, I'd like to thank my colleague Alison, who's been working very hard behind the scenes, making sure people are where they should be at the right times, and promoting and demoting people up and into panelists and then back down into the audience again. So thank you very much for that. There will be a recording available of the proceedings afterwards, subject to speaker approval. So we'll try and get that out to you as soon as we can. Any other questions you've got about this or forthcoming events run by Quaynote, then please let us know. Thank you once again to everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. We'll see you in Malta, we hope, very soon.